Welcome everyone. Welcome to Psyched, a show where we talk about different aspects of psychology and we look at psychology in a very different way and how it applies to the workplace. Welcome to the show, and we're glad to have you with us. And hopefully, as more and more people straddle in, want to wish you a happy Wednesday. And joining me, as always, is Andrea Chu, our co-host on this show, The Psyched. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about the Olympics, right? I mean, obviously, it's at the tail end, at the business end of the Olympics. The medals are being tallied. People are getting recognized. Finally, if you're Malaysian, finally we got a bronze medal. Indonesia got their gold with the amazing two women. And yesterday we saw some fantastic moments with the high jump. Where that was a shared medal. You also saw some great moments in world record being broken by a Norwegian in the 400-meter hurdle. Some exciting things happened. So Andrea, tell us a bit about what you're going to talk about today in this special Olympic edition.
Okay, all right. So, hi everybody. We are going to play a game first, but definitely we are going to dive deep into what's been happening with the Olympics, especially mental health, people breaking down, people withdrawing. We'll talk about Simone Biles as well, and some of the athletes who are facing some kind of similar event in their life at this point of time. But before that, we have an exciting game that includes you. Right? So this time around, Roshan and I won't be playing against each other. You guys will be playing against each other on the comments section. Okay? So we have exciting trivia of the Olympic Games. I couldn't answer any of the questions because I am not great at sports, but let's see how you guys do on the comment section. We have 8 questions, and the winner actually gets something in return. We are going to send you a PDF of our leadership nuggets, which is a PDF book. We had a hard copy, but for this time around, I'm going to give you a PDF version for free directly to your email, no cost, nothing. All right. So those who have answered the questions the most and correctly, you will get the PDF. All right. So if you're excited and you are ready to play this game, just comment on the section on the comments. Let's see whether we have a few contestants for our Psyched Olympic Games this time around. Okay.
Yeah, we see Ramisa. Right. Ramisa has joined us.
Hi, Ramisa.
Welcome, Ramisa. And I'm sure the others who are joining us shortly. So let's go for it. Trivia segment, Olympic Games.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'll ask the first question and then Roshan will ask the second question. The first question, this one I could answer. We learned in high school this time around. The Olympic rings are symbolic of... All right, so let's just give a few seconds for you guys to answer in the comment section. Hi, Proloy. Proloy is coming in. Okay, let me repeat the question, right? The Olympic rings are symbolic of...
Right, so just shoot your answers in the. Proloy says shoot.
Shoot as in I don't remember, or shoot as in like that's symbolic. All right, we have one continent. Sarah Vanan, congratulations, you got it correct. We will move on to question 2. Roshan, you'd like to ask the question?
Sure, and Sarah Vanan wins a special book, right?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
You have to compete. You have to compete of all the 8 questions.
Oh, okay. So we've got a few continents then. Ramisa also says continents. Proloy says union of continents. So I guess all of them will be considered worthy of the prize. Okay, so second question is, what percentage of the Olympic gold medals is actually gold?
Oh dear. And some fun fact while you guys are answering this question, I was watching a video and it says that these Olympic Games in Tokyo was very eco-friendly. So like the stage and the places they used were all recycled materials. And even the gold medal, I'll give you a hint, is actually using e-waste. So like telephones, all the old electronics, they gathered it. And then they put a certain percentage of gold inside. Gold, silver, and bronze, sorry. So what percentage is the gold medal like? 5 to 6 gram. I don't know what percentage is that.
So if
I wonder.
I think it might be about 20 grams to about 30 grams. So a typical medal, 6 grams of gold. I think that's about, maybe. I mean, I think we're looking for percentages, but I think it can pass. I mean, maybe our producer can double check and see what the the actual grammage is, but generally speaking, it's 92%. So we've got a couple of answers: 5.6 grams. Proloy says 5.6 grams. The first question, actually, the first question, somebody says the circles of life. They don't know percentage, but they also use recycle. 7.5% is gold. So I think that's about right? I think usually it's between how much is it usually? I think it's something. I think the right answer is somewhere between like 1% to about 25%. So Proloy, that's absolutely right. It's about 7.5%. And Anil, welcome to the show. See you. Glad to have you here. Okay, so let's move to the. So we've got two questions. Proloy has got both right, and we've got others like Ramisa and others who have got a couple right. One or two right. So don't worry. I mean, as long as you get a couple right, you get a prize. So hang on in there, Saravanan and others. You will be able to win a prize. So let's move to the next one. Third question.
All right, cool. So the third question is, which athlete has won the most Olympic medals? Imagine their house, you open their door, it's just hanging gold medals. That'll be quite cool. Okay, while you guys are answering that question, our backstage folks has found some interesting facts. The gold medal is in fact made from gold-plated pure silver with around 6 grams of gold out of a total weight of 556 grams. The silver medal is made of pure silver, weighs around 550, while the bronze medal weighs about 450 grams. And in fact, it's made from 95% copper and 5% zinc. Okay, so those who had answered 5 to 6 grams, very accurate. I wonder if you all Googled it or you all know it by heart. I will be so invested if you know it by heart.
Okay, so athlete with the most number, I see Michael Phelps. Wow. And Proloy is absolutely right. Yes. Michael Phelps. It is Michael Phelps.
Proloy is on the roll.
Well done. Okay, so let me go to the next question. And the next question is a very simple question. Where is the summer 2020 Olympics being held? Obviously, it's not in 2020, it's 2021. So where is it being held? 2020 Olympics, Summer Olympics being held. Simple answer. Maybe it's everyone should know this. Like this one, even I know, right? Okay, quickly. Michael Phelps was correct for the previous, and it's 28 medals. He won 23 golds, I think. Of that, Tokyo is coming everybody's in. Right. Pora, again, he's on a roll. I think he's going to get all right. Ramisa,
he's going to get a gold medal.
He's going to get the gold. All right.
Okay,
next question.
So I'll move on to the next question. What 2 kinds of Olympics are there?
There are 2 kinds of Olympics.
To be honest, when this question I read, I didn't know there were 2 kinds of Olympics.
You're a sad case, Andrea. Okay, come on. Let's go this. I mean, we want to get to an exciting part of our discussion today, which is to talk a little bit about issues that athletes face and how that applies to the business world. Oh, look at that. Papa. Hallelujah from Golden Papua joins us. Welcome to the show. And what kinds of Olympics there are? I'll give you a hint. One is summer, right? What's the other one?
Proloy is back with summer and winter.
Yeah,
yes.
There you go. There you go. But someone said Paralympics and Olympics. I think that you can give them a...
Close.
Yep. We see a couple more summer Panja with summer and winter Olympics. Well done. Okay. And the next question, we've got a couple more to go. And when did the first Winter Olympics take place? When did the first Winter Olympics take place? So quite a few. Ramla came in with summer and winter. So when did the first Winter Olympics take place?
And
this might not be so easy. Let me give you a hint. It's in the 1920s. So you've got 9 options. The 1920s. Was it 21, 22, 23, 24?
Just put all the numbers there. You might win something.
1920s. When was the first Winter Olympics?
Wow.
All right, we've got a couple of answers. 1924, Proloy, you're absolutely right. And also, Ramisa just somewhere around there, right? And
okay.
I'm so kind to give us clues. Okay, next question, Andrea.
Okay, so the next two questions are open-ended. We're going to leave it in the comment section for you guys to answer. If you could be part of the Olympics, which sport would you be in? Roshan, which sport would you be in? Most like you running.
I mean, personally, I think if I'm in badminton, we have a better chance of winning a medal, right? Being at least at some standards, right? Or diving or even hockey. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the sport I'm pretty good at would be things like football and badminton. But I know that for me to medal in such things would be really hard. But I mean, ultimately, you want to be in the Summer Olympics to be in a 100-meter dash, right? That's the ultimate glory, right? So for me, it'd be that. What about yourself? So I see Proloy say swimming, right? Fantastic. And wow, Proloy even goes to the Winter Olympics, January 25th, 1924.
Wow.
All right, so I think for the presents, right, we're going to give Proloy a present for sure. We're going to give Ramisa, and we're going to give all those of you who commented. So if you can, shoot your emails in the comment section, and our producer will send you. All of you will get a special present from the ones who answered early on, from Saravanan, Ramisa, Proloy. Every one of you was going to get a present. So if you've answered a question, shoot your emails below, and our producer will get there. Proloy says he was part of competitive swimming for 10 plus years. So wow. Well done. And I think maybe we can go to our final questions. If you could invent a sport for the Olympic, what sport would it be? What about you, Andrea? What would you invent?
I joked about this, but I think it's true. I will invent a sleeping competition, a sleeping sport. I will definitely win. I can hibernate very long. All right, so I think we can move on to our topic for today. Let's start with the story of Simone Biles. Right, boss? What have you heard and what have you seen? What was going on with her?
Yeah, so I mean, it's very interesting. Not just Simone Biles, right? I mean, you see Djokovic in tennis, where he got mad, I guess, after losing the semi-final. He wanted to win the Golden Slam, right? And it was a huge opportunity. It's very hard to win the Golden Slam. So once in 4 years, you win the 4 Grand Slams plus the Olympics gold, right? And then he lost in the semi-finals, and then he lost in the 3rd, 4th placing match, and he just lost it, and then he pulled out of the doubles match also. So you see a lot of emotions, right? You see Simone, you just at some point in time was unable to manage that and decided to take a break and pause and reflect. And there's a lot of people who are upset with her, for doing that. Especially it was a team event, right? Because essentially the whole team couldn't participate. At the same time, many people, you read about what she was saying is that, she went in the athletics village, a lot of people went to her and said, thank you so much, thank you for standing up and thank you for doing what you did. So it's a very interesting, it's really very interesting to see different people's reaction. What was your take, and what was your insights from there, Andrea?
I think it's interesting because there are two perspectives that come from her event itself, because it's the Olympics. It was a huge thing that happened, worldwide. So when she pulled out, she did mention that she had something called the twisties, which I've never heard of because I don't follow sports. I was like, what is this twisties? Is it the snack twisties? That I had to go and Google what it is. It's basically this disconnect between mind and body, right? She couldn't control her body when she was up in air, twisting when she was doing her routine. So it's interesting because two perspectives, sportsmen who came together and said that, we applaud you for your courage and your bravery, taking care of yourself first rather than the sport. If you can't take care of yourself, you're not going to move forward. Michael Phelps came and talked about it. There's a lot of things like this. But then on the other side, like, what's his name again? Novak Djokovic, right? At first, he commented to her experience to say that, no, you should just drive forward. You should just deal with it yourself and all that. And then right after that, he broke down himself. So it's very interesting to me to see that there are different perspectives coming from different people, even from the whole sports industry itself. And it's interesting because this has been happening all over the years. It's not just now, right? You see, like mental health, challenges are really, it cannot be avoided. And even the NBA star, Kevin Love, he wrote this in his quote. He said this: mental health is an invisible thing, but it touches all of us at some point or another. All of us here in reference to all sports people. It's part of life. And Michael Phelps as well. He's a top swimmer and he's amazing at it, but he's also very open with his struggle with depression. A lot of stats show that 35% of elite athletes deal with a mental health crisis, whether it is body image issues or depression, anxiety. All of that happens because they are at very high level of peak performance that they need to achieve. But the question here today we are asking is it just really about mental health? Or is it a mixture of a lot of other things, our neuro, our brain, our body? And we're going to discuss a bit more in this section, right?
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
and I think to take it one step even further is to understand how this plays in the office, because when we look at top athletes and say, look, these guys are high performers at the top of their craft, at the pinnacle of success or failure, I would say, with the Olympics gold, bronze, the silver. It means so much to many countries, right? To get an Olympic gold, or just to be medaled in some countries, right? You think of a country like Malaysia, just to be medaled is amazing, right? So it's such a high stakes game, right? But the same thing is in the workplace, right? When you look at businesses, when you're on the C-suite, it's such a high stakes game. Success and failure is such a thin line. There's such a little margin of error. And I think that same issue of twisties or choking, choking on the line, or panic. Malcolm Gladwell says there's two things, right? There's choking and there's panic. It's completely different things. And then of course Simone talks about these things. But should we maybe catch a quick video on what some of the athletes are saying, and then we can go deeper into this dialogue. Andrea, so let's watch this very quick video.
I guess I was just sick and tired of just having it inside of me for 20 plus years, and I was ready to make a change. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I hit a very low point in my life where I didn't want to be alive anymore.
Simone Biles withdrew to focus on her mental health, a decision both competitors and teammates applauded.
As much as this is a big event, it's so important to take care of your mental and physical body.
After Naomi Osaka lost in an upset earlier this week, she spoke about how tough it was being in the spotlight.
The Canadians look like they got third.
Today, after Kaylee Filmer and Hillary Jansen's road to a bronze medal in women's pairs, Filmer spoke about her own experience with depression.
I wouldn't be here without Hillary and everyone that I have back home, and I hope that everyone just knows that keep the people around you tight and they're going to support you and you can get through it.
Every athlete has to make a decision for what's best for them. I think it was incredibly courageous of Simone to put her mental health first, and I commend her for that.
Yeah, I say put mental health first, because if you don't, then you're not going to enjoy your sport and you're not going to succeed as much as you want to. So it's okay sometimes to even sit out the big competitions to focus on yourself, because it shows how strong of a competitor and person that you really are.
Well, looks like I just lost Andrea, but as we watch that, I got a couple of comments. One is, you've got hallelujah. I know I don't understand English, but I love watching this event. I use Google Translation. Fantastic. But Proloy made a comment that is relatively interesting. The ability not to be able to cope with failure is not taught in schools. We're all trained to win, but there is very little education on failure. As soon as we can get Andrea back up and running, we'll have her back here. But Proloy, thanks for the comment. I think that's a very important comment, right? We don't teach how to deal with failure, how to deal with anxiety, and how to deal with that moment, right? And Malcolm Gladwell, one of the things I like, in the year 2000, many years ago, right? He wrote about this, and he said about this concept of choking. And many people think about that it's really about panic. The athletes panic, and because they panic, they make silly mistakes. But he started to analyze why this happens only to some athletes and not all athletes. And he made this quote, he says, look, choking is about thinking too much. Panic is about thinking too little. Choking is about loss of instinct. Panic is reversion to instinct. And Andrea, welcome back. we were just talking a little bit about choking, and I think when you think about athletes, right? Michael Phelps talked about this, right? He says we carry a lot of weight on our shoulders, and it's challenging, especially when we have the lights on us and all of these expectations thrown of us. But I think, in the year 2000, this is like many years ago, right? 21 years ago, when this whole concept started to come to light, and there was a lot of scientific evidence to start to say that, look, actually choking and panic is actually triggered by specific mental mistakes, right? So choking is thinking too much. So this happens, very interestingly, right? The better you become in a sport, and there was many experiments that were done. One I think in Caltech, another one in University College of London, right? And they were a study called Neuron, where they actually looked at people who were very good at something, and when and people who are average or just elementary in a certain task. And when people are good at a certain task, when you start to push them to limits and make them think about what they're doing, right, they start to make mistakes. Whereas when people are learning the sport and you tell them, okay, reflect on what you did, reflect on this, and think before you do this, think before you make that thing, they become better at the sport. And what that started to say is that, as more and more, when it becomes instinctual for athletes to just do stuff, when you start thinking about it, you have this moment of what we call choking, where you think too much. And it's not panic, it's the when you start thinking too much, you start making mistakes. And we see that so many times. I mean, yesterday, I think part of it is, Andrea, I'm not sure whether you were following the football, Brazil versus Mexico, I went into 0-0. Mexico played really well, and then it went into penalties. And penalties is, as a striker, right, you just think and just boom, bang it in, right? And I think the Mexicans just couldn't get it in, right? It's amazing. And I think they were thinking too much and they choked, right? And we see choking all over, right? I mean, in cricket, South Africa, right, for years, they kind of choked. From 99, we saw, we've seen that in international stages in so many places. I like to remind my producer, who's a Liverpool fan, in many years ago, when all they needed was to lose by 1 goal. And I remember they somebody says, just lose by 1 goal and we'll win this and we'll win the title. And somehow they choked and they lost by 2 goals and they lost the title. So choking is quite natural. But I think it also applies to the workplace. And Andrea, I know we lost you for a while, but your quick thoughts on this whole concept of choking.
Sure. Can you hear me? I was cut off with my headphones as well. Can you hear me?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah?
Perfect.
Okay, all right. So choking is this phenomena in psychology that happens when people are, like Boss mentioned, I'm not going to go very deep into that. And it explains how it is social, social anxiety, there's sensitivity, there's also this fear of negative evaluation. There's a lot of things that happens in the social space. There's also a lot of physical anxiety, right? The disconnect between your body and your mind happens a lot here because there's a lot of anxiety happening. And there's also this understanding of wanting to be perfect, which is why a lot of athletes who are facing choking is when they start to analyze every little thing that they're doing during their routine, right? And moving on to the question that Boss Roshan, you've mentioned, right? How does this actually also happen in the workplace? I think it's very prevalent, not just for C-suites, but also star performers, top performers, school students who are on top, who are being expected so much by their parents to succeed and achieve something. And I'm not sure whether you've touched on a comment by somebody else just now. He mentioned that we are so used to being taught to win. We have never been taught to how to face.
Yeah, Proloy's comment. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, we did.
Okay, yes, and I agree with that, right? We are so used to needing to win. When it comes to failures, it really hits us down, and that's it, right? You just stay down. This is interesting also because it's also tied to our brain center. There's something called a ventral striatum in our brain, which is a rewards hub, right? And the research shows that if these people start to this hub that correlates with our success, with decreased activity will lead to decreased performance. And bigger incentives for people who are having that limited time to perform or succeed. Like, for example, you train for 10 years and then you go and compete for a good 10 seconds. That will determine whether you're a success or a failure. People who have this choking issue or this choking phenomenon happening, it will show that actually this ventral striatum will have a decreased level of activity. There's less excitement because there's higher incentives, that means winning goal and stuff like that, and that shows that the performance will drop. And that's very interesting because it shows that it is not just about, about this perception that's happening. It is the perception plus what's happening in our brain as well that causes this choking behavior. And it's not about how people say, it's just your attitude, you just have no resilience. Now, that's very unfortunate that people think that way. And we're just showing you that actually it links back to this little part in your brain called ventral striatum. Yeah, and it comes to touching on things like performance anxiety, self-sabotage, imposter syndrome. These are all big concepts that we will explain maybe in the future where we dive into that. But these areas are also linked to that neuroscience explanation.
Yeah, and I think that's very interesting because when we looked at the science behind it, all these extra thoughts like the parental pressure, the perform, all these different expectations, and that causes you to think, right, and overthink, which is causes the choking, right. But it doesn't happen to all, right. It only happens to some athletes, some students, some business leaders. Not all, not everyone gets nervous, right. Everyone gets nervous. But not everyone chokes. And one of the things I think that's very interesting that we found, I think this whole concept of loss aversion, and this is interesting, right? And this is a study by a group in Caltech, right, many years ago, where they let people play video games, and they said, look, we give you money, the more successful you are. But once they the more successful you are, at first the performance steadily improved as the incentives increased. The extra money was actually motivating. However, it only lasted for a little while. Once the reward actually passed a certain threshold, and there was a particular tipping point, and this depended on the individuals, right? They started to see a surprising decrease in success. So it means extra cash actually hurt performance. The subjects began to choke, right? And actually they were using a brain scanner, not a perfect tool, but kind of monitoring the blood flow, looking for a number of things. And what they found is, like you said, the striatum, right? Was tracking the financial stakes of the game, and they were telling the subjects about the bigger payout, right? And so because of that, it led to increased activity, right? But the extra money enabled people to get excited about the potential rewards, which are why they work harder and which is why they were successful. And this is why companies give bonuses, right? Business people, we give bonuses to people to perform better. But you see, the thing was very interesting, right? When they started playing the video game more and more, the striatum did something very particular. All of a sudden, the activities of the brain area started to become inversely related to the magnitude of the reward. So the bigger the incentive led to less excitement. And this is why I told you the tipping point, right? That means the further the activity in the ventrum striatum, right, was correlated with success, the decreased activity led to decreased performance. And you try to explain what drove that result, right? And researchers started to say that really this is a case of loss aversion. Now, what's loss aversion? Loss aversion is your losses make you feel more bad than the gains you can make. But there was no loss, right? I mean, because you say it doesn't make sense, right? We were not punishing you for losing the game. We're just saying if you succeed, we give you more rewards, right? But here's what was happening. The brain was actually encoding the potential gains as actual gains. That means, as they were playing, they were thinking they were already going to win. And then they started thinking about, oh, but if I lose now, I will lose all of this, right? So suddenly the loss became a hindrance, right? And this is where I think it's very interesting for business, right? So instead of being excited by their future riches, the subjects were actually fretting about their possible failure. So when you start thinking about this, right? This loss aversion individuals, and this is not all individuals, the individuals that were most affected by loss aversion showed the biggest drop-off in performance when the stakes were raised. In other words, the fear of failure was making them more likely to fail. They kept on losing because they hated losses. Funny, right? They kept on losing because they hated losses, right? Yeah. And you start thinking about this in the business world, right? I mean, a year ago, we were talking about Nicole in our team, and we were saying, look, let's just get to 100,000 Nicole users, 1 million users, and we wanted to reward guys with more money, with more successful in driving a car. But there's a certain threshold when you and this happens, right? The more your bonuses, and I think Daniel Pink also did this study where money is not a motivator, right? At a certain threshold, money doesn't motivate. But I think what these researchers have found is this fear is that, look, when you're just about to get the gold medal, when you're just there and you're right about it, you're thinking about what if I don't, right? And the loss suddenly causes you to actually lose the gold medal, right? That thinking about loss aversion, and I think same thing in business,
Yeah,
go
we
ahead.
call this self-sabotage with performance as well. Yeah, it's very prevalent.
And
Yes,
and
you
think
were
about
saying
this in
about
the
businesses.
business. Yeah, so I look at the business and we look at bonuses and we look at how we reward our employees. But there are certain threshold, and it's good at the starting point, to get you up and going. But at a certain point, it may actually cause loss aversion and may actually cause you to underperform. So the more you pay, the more bonuses you give, the more likely you will have this framing, right? The gain frame versus the loss frame, right? I don't want to have that sure loss. And I think this is very, very important, right? I quote one of our Ribery says 20,000 balloon was the biggest robbery in my career. It was injustice. You see a number of comments coming in. I just want to look at some of the comments from Proloy. Says the inability to cope with failure leads to many challenges most people are not prepared to deal with. Similar cancer affecting a family financially. Failure to win leads to similar unpreparedness. As we look at these different thoughts, maybe Andrea, and maybe as you close off today's session, what are your thoughts and what are your sort of recap of what you think the lessons for today that we can take off from the Olympic Games are?
I think for my end, I come from a perspective where everybody has this desire to succeed. And self-sabotage happens when you think that you're going to lose. Even before you begin or you're in midst of trying to achieve that success, if you start thinking about it, you're going to self-sabotage yourself. So from a perspective of an employee, I'm not sure what you guys think. In your careers, in your lives, when there was a moment where you had to prove whether you were successful or not, did that hinder you from actually being successful? I'm not saying that everybody has that or everybody will choke, but some people will experience it in their life, and maybe you have. So drop in the comments, your thoughts and your experiences. But I'm gonna come back to the idea of there's this perception, right, that if you lose now, you're gonna forever be a failure. And I like this quote. I don't remember by who, but it's something that stuck with me all this time. Is that there's a big difference between failing and a failure. Just because you fail at something doesn't mean you're a failure. And as we are getting awareness about how this affects our life, then whenever that thought comes to you, then it's a distortion of thought, right? We call it a cognitive distortion. And when you catch it in time and change it with an alternative thought that actually, what if I win? What if I succeed? You'll be able to overcome that in a way. So whether you're a sportsman, you're a person who is in an organization, you're a CEO, you are a young star performer in the company, you're a scholar in school, whatever it is to catch that when it happens to you and change it to an alternative thought, which is actually a therapy that counselors and clinical psychologists use for people who have these overthinking issues, distortions of their thoughts and stuff like that. So to close off, I hope this episode has given you some insight of not just the vague description of what mental health is in sports, but also how that happens in your brain and how do you catch it in time to change your thoughts before you break down and stuff like that. And interestingly, lastly, a food for thought for you guys to think about is also this. When you are in a position where everybody is keeping an eye on you, right? Whether you're a star performer, a CEO, or excellent sportsman, right? How do you make sure that you are still being able to share your experiences, your vulnerabilities, if I may, of having this overthinking of failing and stuff like that with people before that happens in real time? Meaning before you break down, before you go for a competition and you break down there. That's the big question. how do you still do that while maintaining a certain perception of how people look at you, your outlook, your reputation? That's another question I have for all of you to think about. I'm very excited to see your comments in the section. How do you do that? And I have that question for Roshan, and maybe he'll answer that in the comment section as well once we finish our episode today. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for all those people who are tuning in. And I want to end with something Proloy mentioned. You know, he said that I failed early in his life. And back in school where coping it was tough, but I learned to cope quick. And the reason I failed was excessive attention to computers. All right. I hope someday we will listen to your entire story, Proloy. If you could write your story on LinkedIn or as a post and tag us there, we'd love to read your entire story of how do you cope quick and how do you bounce back fast. All right. So that's it for today. Thank you so much. This show, once again, is brought to you by Budaya. And Olympics is ending soon. So let's look and hopefully I'll watch the closing ceremony of it. Thank you so much, everybody. And we are going to show you a very quick video on Budaya before we end. And have a great week and enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everybody.